I'm gonna tell you a little secret. Mandarin has not only tones, but also stress. And that means that each of the four tones has a stressed version, and that's usually the one you learn in Chinese instructional materials, and also an unstressed version. Today I'm gonna teach you how to say the unstressed versions and when to use them. Alright, let's start with the first tone. High level is the stressed version. 时间, you notice that the 间 is high throughout. Versus the unstressed version, 明天, the 天 is lower than the point where the 明 climbs to. So actually, if I were to graph pitch over time, here's what it would look like. 时, that's rising from a mid-level to a high level. This is tone 2. And then 间 is high. Versus 明天, 明. And notice that the black characters are the stressed ones. So this is a stressed second tone, and we'll get there on the next slide. 明天, the 天 is lower than the 间. 明天, 时间, 时间, 明天. So 间, 天. Now let's look at the second tone. Listen to the difference between 元 and 国. 公元, 中国, 元, 国. The difference here is that 国 doesn't rise as high as yuan. So, if I were to graph those two, pitch over time. 公, this is a stressed first tone, so high throughout. And then yuan, and you'll notice that it rises all the way to the top where the first tone sits. 中国, the 国 only rises a little bit, so 中国. So it does rise, but 国, it's very subtle. 公元中国. Now let's look at the third tone. Listen to the difference between 喝水 and 方法. Actually, a lot of you know that the stressed third tone has two different pronunciations. When you pronounce it in isolation, you get a dipping tone. So 水 starts medium low, it goes very low, and then it comes back up. 喝水, 水, it goes up again. But actually, if you have words after that, like if I ask, 你喝水了吗? Have you drunk water yet? In that case, 你喝水了吗? The 水 only goes down and it doesn't come back up again. So actually, the graph of that would look like this. Now compared to the unstressed version. Pronounced in isolation, the unstressed version does not rise up again. It's actually quite similar to the 水 when you have stuff after it, except that it's a little bit shorter. So, 方法, 方法. I'm not saying 方法 or 方法. It's 方法. It's a little bit shorter. 喝水, 方法. And then 喝水 without coming up, and 方法. Now let's look at the fourth tone. 开会 versus 工作. You notice I'm not saying 工作. It's not as sharp. So what exactly is the difference? Let me graph pitch over time again. 开会. It starts high and it goes low. 工作. 工. When you get to 做, it actually starts at a mid-level and drops. So it doesn't start as high. It does drop. You want to make sure it does drop and you're not pronouncing it level, but it doesn't start as high. So 开会, 工作. Notice I'm not saying 工作, 工作. 开会. I'm not saying 开会, 开会 versus 工作. Of course, there's also a fifth tone, and that's it's an unstressed tone. It's always unstressed. There's no stressed version of it. But actually, the way it's pronounced exactly varies depending on which of the 4 tones came before it. I'll save that topic, that discussion, for another video. And now let's look at when to use unstressed and stressed tones. My recommendation is to start off by unstressing everything. Now, you may think that's a little bit weird, but actually, a lot of people, when they speak, they're quite monotonous and even robotic. And if you stress every word, you end up sounding like some news reporters or children reading from a textbook. In conversation, nobody actually talks like that, and you'll probably end up sounding very foreign. So if you talk monotonously and unstress everything, actually that's fine. You won't sound foreign, but you will sound maybe a little bit boring. So that's the trade-off. So if you want to sound a little bit less dead, follow the following guidelines. So first of all, classifiers are always unstressed. 个, 知, 本, 见. I'm not going to teach grammar in this lesson, but classifiers are basically units, like a sheet of paper, and that would be 张 actually. So if you were to say 3 sheets of paper, how would you say that? Would you say 三张纸 or 三张纸? 三张纸 actually sounds a lot more natural. 张 is the first tone, so you pronounce it a bit lower than the 三. The numeral 三, you would actually stress that. So stress the number, not the unit. Also, some grammatical particles are unstressed always. So these are the aspect markers like 过, 在, 起来, 下去. Now, I'm saying them as if they were standalone words, but actually in speech you would unstress them. So 我吃过饭了. I've eaten food already. I'm not saying 我吃过饭了. 我吃过饭了. That's fourth tone. So 我吃过饭了 instead of 我吃过饭了. You hear the difference? So now let's look at repeated verbs. This is a grammatical construction in Chinese where if you repeat a verb, it means like you're doing it for a while. 看看, for instance, that's the first one. To read for a bit, 走走, to walk a little, 洗洗, to wash a bit. Take some time and, for instance, wash your hands, 洗洗手. So 看看. The first one, if you choose to not be monotonous, you would stress the first verb, but not the second one. So 看看, I'm not saying 看看, 看看书, it's 看看书, 写写字, 走走路, 洗洗手, 工作工作, to work for a while. So 工作工作. So notice that everything after the first 工 is unstressed. It's not 工作工作, it's 工作工作. So the second 工, it is a first tone, but you would pronounce it unstressed. Okay, and then let's look at number time, a number plus time or type combinations. What I mean by this is for the months and certain days like today, tomorrow, yesterday, you would stress the number and not the unit. So 二月 for February, not 二月, 二月. 明天, you wouldn't say that. Instead, 明天. Right? And the same for yesterday, 昨天 instead of 昨天. The year after tomorrow is 后年. I wouldn't say 后年. I mean, it's not wrong to say it, but it just sounds less natural, if you know what I mean. 后年 instead of 后年. The unit, like the type of the thing it is, which is a year, you don't stress that. So it's not just time expressions, countries, for instance. 中国, the type of the thing is country, 国. So you don't say 中国, it's 中国. And then the actual variable, 中, you would stress that. That's the specific morpheme in that word. 中国. And You could apply that to other countries. 美国 is America, the USA. You wouldn't say 美国, but rather 美国. 俄国 instead of 俄国 for Russia and etc. So now let's look at verb plus object phrases. So these are words like to smoke, which is actually to inhale smoke. That's actually how we say it. 抽烟 in Chinese. And you would, here what you do is you would stress both morphemes, both parts of the word. 喝水, to drink water, for instance. You wouldn't say 喝水, you would say 喝水, stressing both parts. This explains why 开会 has the sharp drop at 会, because it's of the form verb plus object. 开, it means to open, but really here you could think of it as to hold, and 会, like a gathering, a meeting. So hold a meeting, that's to meet, I guess, to have a meeting. 开会 instead of 开会. 开会. 抽烟 instead of 抽烟. 睡觉 to sleep. You need to have the sharp drop on both parts of the word. So for question words, you basically have to stress the head of the word. And by head, I mean actually a specific word in a specific morpheme in that word that we typically stress over the others for some reason. For instance, 谁 or 谁, but 谁 is more common in conversational speech. For who, 几点, at what time. 几点, I'm not saying 几点, but rather 几点. 什么时候, when. Everything after the head of the word is unstressed. 为什么, 为什么 for why. I'm not saying 为什么, but 为什么. The 什么 is unstressed. And then 哪里, where. You can also say 哪儿, which is the next one. 哪里. Here you wouldn't say 哪里, but rather 哪里. 怎么 for how. Actually, if you mean 怎么 as in how come, like how come you're doing this, how come you're here? I didn't expect you to be here. 你怎么在这儿啊? You actually wouldn't stress the head of the word 怎. But if you mean how, you have to stress it. 怎么. So I hope this video helps. If it does, please leave a like, and I will be making more such videos in the future. Now, a lot of people might think, oh, because there's stress and tone, I have to worry about so many things and I'll never learn Chinese. Well, you shouldn't be discouraged, because you should think about learning a new word as memorizing the sound of the word, not necessarily, oh, it's first tone, but the first is stressed and the second is unstressed. You don't have to memorize the values. Just know what it sounds like. And if you hear the words enough, you'll eventually pick up on the natural pronunciations. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.